viewers don't care about the process. They don't care if you filmed for 6 months or if you filmed for 6 days.
They just want a good movie.
Yeah.
That's it.
And so your job as a producer and a director is to make that film and finish it and get it out there.
Welcome to the Red, Green, Blue podcast.
This is Brian Brough, where he has distributed over 60 films and directed 45 or more, or 60 or plus. I mean, so many.
A lot.
And he's sold them all. They've all been distributed, broadcast, and he's made money off of them. And he's been able to consistently make money off of independent film, which is astonishing. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, virtually nobody can do that. Nobody. So it's really impressive. I'm really excited to have him here. And so, first of all, I was just wondering, how did you get into film?
It started when I was at BYU. I was taking some film classes there and just really introduction to film. And from that, it kind of piqued my interest. And I didn't ever really think of film being a career. But by taking the film classes there and then applying for the film program, you have to go and do some volunteer work with to get exposed to different sets and stuff like that. Yeah. And just being on set is kind of what got me into it.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So, but what was like the first time you're like, okay, now we're going to make a movie that's going to make money?
I mean, back when I started, everybody was still shooting on 35 millimeter film. So It was a much bigger process than it is nowadays. We started off doing some short films. We actually, like, one of the first things we did as a company, or I say as a company, with my family's company, is we took a lot of my student films and just said, hey, let's package it and put it on VHS and sell them.
Yeah.
And so we did that with a few of those films. From a feature film standpoint, we started off, I think, with big dreams in our eyes and, spent a lot of money, made a movie on 35, said we're going to go to festivals, find the perfect buyer, get it out there, and learn that distribution does not happen as easy as people think it does or wish it would. I mean, you hear the success stories, which are fantastic when it does happen, but those are very rare. I think we all like to think that we're going to be that anomaly, that success. Mm-hmm. And for us, our path was, we were very fortunate with how we went, but it just didn't go at all the way that we thought we were going to go.
Yeah, well, I think that's normal. I mean, that's the thing. People always talk about big Sundance success stories. There's like 20 films that have made over $10 million. When you think about how long Sundance has been going on, how many films have been through it, that's not very many.
Yeah, and just getting picked up at Sundance does not necessarily mean you're going to make money.
No, a lot of them lose money.
And for us, we were fortunate enough that we ended up going around screening the film, like in lots of places in LA. We went to Warner Brothers and screened it, invited everybody out to see it, and then we went out to New York. And back then, Miramax was still around. So we went to their theater and screened something. And they called us up afterwards and says, hey, the film's not right for us, but we're part of Disney. ABC Family is a channel, and they're looking for something exactly like this.
Oh, fantastic.
And so they opened the door, pointed us over that direction. And so we got picked up for a TV broadcast, which we never really considered.
Oh, that's like a miracle.
And so that was kind of our exposure into TV movies, which is really what most of my career has been doing. And after that, we always thought, you have to go theatrical. Everything's theatrical.
Yeah.
And that was back in the day when people still went to theaters,
No, of course, now. Yeah.
But opening the door for television really helped. We had a TV deal with ABC Family. We went to international with Fox. We did a lot of stuff, and it still took a very long time to make our money back.
Oh, yeah. No, again, that's the miracle of today is that, it's kind of a two-way street, but like there was kind of a magical time. I think it was like DVD sales where independent people could make quite a bit of money and control their own distribution to a degree through the retail distribution channel. Mm-hmm. But if they own that cable channel or if they own the theater, the distribution, you're going to be the last to get paid. Ironically.
Yeah, well, with television, it's different. And this is why we loved and still like working with television is they don't expense everything out. They come in, they license your film for 5 years for X amount of dollars, whatever the deal is. You just get paid that amount. And it might be over the course of the term or whatever. Whereas in theaters, you have distribution fees, you have all the expenses, your print and advertising costs, and you're the last one to get paid. So TV was and has always been great in the sense of it's not what we get paid if it does well. It's they license it, you get paid.
Yeah.
DVDs.
You don't get the upside though. If they get incredible numbers on your show, you don't get more. No, but you make sure that you sell it for a decent amount so you can have that upside there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I had a friend who sold a documentary for Netflix, and then it was like a huge hit, like a bigger hit than they could ever imagine. It was like a national sensation. In fact, it's even turned into a musical recently. But anyway, they didn't get paid anymore. Yeah. It was just kind of the exact same amount of rate. And you can imagine the rate you would get for a documentary. It was kind of like, well, that would be kind of nice.
And it's great that it did well.
Yeah.
But, even Netflix probably didn't have any idea that it was going to do so well.
Yeah, exactly.
It does well, but that's just how it works. And, and that's Netflix licenses it. So that's how it works there. But when you go to Amazon most of the time, unless they can license some stuff, but if not, it's a revenue share. And so if it does well, then now you get paid with that, but you get paid a rev share on a very, very small rate,
No. But again, it's consistent income and you can license it over and over again.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it can, as long as it stays in the cycle. How do you get the scripts for your movies?
We kind of work a little backwards in the sense of we try to say, who's our audience? What's the film? Like, where do we want to shoot? What's this kind of story we want to tell? Who's our audience? And so, most of what we do now or what we have done over the years is a lot of rom-coms. We've done a lot of Christmas movies, again, very much in the TV space. So sometimes we'll go and talk to the broadcasters and say, hey, what are you looking for? And, we pitch different ideas and they say, hey, we like these 2 out of your list of ideas, and we develop those.
Okay, so you pitch from the idea stage.
Not always, but that's the nice, safer way. Other times we just have brainstorming sessions, come up with ideas and say, what do we like? What do we think we can go off and do? And we just develop that more and more.
Really? Do you have writers you work with regularly, or do you write them yourself?
We've worked with a few different writers. For the most part, my sister Brittany, she is our main writer in the company.
Okay.
So we'll come up with ideas and go back and forth and outline it, and then she'll go off and develop it and write it. But like I said, we have a couple other writers that we've worked with occasionally, but for the most part, Brittany writes it.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. So that's really fortunate. You have such a prolific sister.
Yeah, no, she does a great job. And our company is very vertical. It's a family company. And so, Brittany writes most of our stuff. We both produce the films now. I've directed most of them. She started directing a little bit here and there. And so we do that. And then our parents handle a lot of the distribution side, which is frankly what we did it out of necessity. I mean, you can't make money unless your film is distributed correctly and honestly. Yeah. And I think that's this trouble with a lot of independent filmmakers is they want to get their film out there. They trust distributors. And unfortunately, a lot of distributors are not as honest as they claim they will be.
Oh, no. Yeah.
And as a result,
it's their job. It's what they do.
Yeah. I mean, they do a good job of making money for themselves, which is their goal. But as a filmmaker, you have to have money flow back to you or else you're dead in the water. Yeah.
And I remember the first film festival I was ever in Slam Dance. They even had because there's all these just bigger film festivals, there'll be distributors prowling around and everybody's like, oh my goodness, there's a distributor actually interested in my project. But they actually even had a song they'd sing to every group of filmmakers every time they came into the festival. And it was, distributors are scumbags. They're going to try to rip you off. And because, you're just so excited. And you see, over and over again, you hear stories about that.
I went to a panel once and one of the distributors was talking about it. It's like, well, it's all in the contract. If you don't like it, come back and tell us, but we're going to put it in the contract and most people just sign it. So they don't understand it or they don't care because like you said, they get excited about distribution. I think it's hilarious when filmmakers are like, I got distribution. I'm like, well, that's good, but what does that mean?
No, it's true. Yeah.
And it's great to get distribution. But again, if you don't make money off of it, then it doesn't really matter that you had distribution.
Yeah. No, it's true. I don't know. Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. But I can think of I'm not going to name names because I don't have permission to talk about it. But there's like a major film that we're probably both familiar with where they got distribution and really killer distribution. And then again, it was a huge hit. And again, like in the contract, there were things that they should have gotten paid more, but they ended up suing the distributor and it was a mess. And I don't know, sometimes like you may be in the right, but maybe it's not a good idea to sue people.
Well, you have to be able to prove it. You have to be able to spend lots of money legally to go do this and then force them to pay afterwards if you do win. So
then it's not going to happen.
So it's better to I think what happens, from the distribution side, we meet with a lot of filmmakers and they talk to other distributors and get these big, big promises, like you said. Yeah. And in the end, they come back to us 2 years later or a year later saying, hey, can you help me? Everything you said is right. What they said is they're not really doing. We're like, yeah, that's just kind of how it works now. They have the rights. When it's done, then we can talk to you. So we actually have a lot of films that people come back to us and give it to us when their term is over with their first distributor.
So then you'd end up distributing their film.
Yeah, we're second out, so it's not as good for us. But it's more of, we said, well, we didn't make any money at all with the first distributor, and they made money. It's been out for 3 years, and now we need to make something. So, I realize that distributors are going to make a lot of promises. It's good to talk to vet them a little bit, talk to other filmmakers that have worked with them. making sure that what they promise is doable.
Yeah. And also, I mean, it's hard to, like, I mean, if your reading comprehension isn't excellent, hire a lawyer that you trust.
Yeah.
I mean, that's again, and I think the best way to find that is like through referrals and other filmmakers.
Well, here's like the big mistake that even we misunderstood in the beginning. When it comes to foreign distribution, you'll meet with companies and they would give us the sheet of all the countries that buy.
Yeah.
It'd be a minimum maximum amount. So we'd look at that and go, wow, if we just sell the minimum in all these countries, look how much money we can make.
Mm-hmm.
What they don't tell you is they really don't sell to all these countries.
Yeah.
They sell to the 5 to 10 biggest countries or the easiest buyers. And the other countries don't sell at all.
Mm-hmm.
So you think you're going to sell to 70 countries. You sell to 5 or 7 or whatever. And then you realize, oh, okay, that was only if it were to sell. So, a lot of these estimates that people give you are not accurate in terms of what you're going to receive.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So again, it's like, there's so many different ways to be ripped off in film.
Yeah.
It's astonishing. I think that's why you see a lot of family companies and, famously in Hollywood, there's a lot of Nepo babies. But honestly, it's just because you need this background of trust.
You have to trust the people.
Yeah.
And, potentially you're talking about fairly large sums of money. And you want to make sure that things are done above board and that people are honest, that you're being honest with people, that people are being honest with you. And that, if you want the longevity, we've been fortunate enough to have the longevity. We've been doing this for 20 plus years now, which again
is completely unheard of.
And we've we typically have been doing between 4 and 6 movies a year. So we for us we don't see ourselves as artists trying to tell these great stories. Hopefully we do that as well, but it's more of, okay, we're a business and we want to create movies that people will buy and watch and enjoy and that will generate revenue. And by doing that in the right format, the right way that we've set it up, at least for us, has made it possible for us to bring in revenue and put it back and make more and more projects. If we had gone with other distributors, then it's still possible, but it's a little bit harder because you have a whole nother layer. They take years to collect, years to pay you, and it just slows down the process. So that's enabled us to be able to grow the way we have and to be able to have that longevity.
Yeah, no, and whoever can, how am I going to say this? You really do not want it in courts. Just in every way.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, even this is like, as a guy who owns a camera rental business, we had a guy steal some cameras from us. Like, it was like $10,000 worth of gear, and they caught him. It was easy. He was dumb. And so he's even been prosecuted and pled guilty. And so he owes us $10,000. And this has been like 4 years.
Yeah. How are you going to collect it?
Yeah. I have received one $100 check from that $10,000.
Yeah. He has no intention of ever paying.
No, it's not. And even
the hassle soon.
Even though that was like the plea bargain,
yeah.
It kept him out of a year of jail, but he's just not going to pay it. He's just going to go around on his record that he's a stealer.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's
anyway, it's almost impossible to hostilely collect money.
Yeah. The best thing is, like you said, surround yourself with people that you trust, that you have good relationships with. That being said, it's good to document everything. Like you make a project with friends, still document it, have a clear understanding of this is what I do, this is what you do. Let's make sure who owns what are we expected to do? And not because you want to sue them, but because it shows you guys, if there's ever disagreement on what you're supposed to do is, hey, this is what we agreed to.
Yeah, that's what you can go to.
I signed that too. Okay. And maybe you didn't like it, but at least you guys both agreed to it going into it.
And also people's memories can drift.
Oh, for sure.
And they're like, wait a minute, you agreed to pay me this much. Like, no, we didn't. Here it is. Even if it's just internally. Yeah. So, yeah. But even then, when you're talking to referrals, talk to people who have been engaged with that person in that capacity.
For sure.
Not just people who
are friends
or making money or like, I remember one time, I was like, when I was talking, just as a like auto mechanic thing, I was like, hey, do you know a good auto mechanic for this truck? And he's like, oh yeah, there's this guy. I went to high school with him. And I'm like, that doesn't necessarily mean to me.
He's a good auto mechanic,
that he's a good, honest auto mechanic, right? So you want to go to another person who owns a truck like yours and say, where do you take your truck to get it fixed?
Yeah.
Just to use that example.
Oh, yeah.
Because you want to be engaged. And again, once again in film, there's a lot of talk, but people can actually do it, and people are actually honest. Are rare, and once you find them, you hold to them. You work with the same people repeatedly.
Oh yeah,
a lot.
Yeah.
So, what do you look for in crew?
Honestly, I want somebody who has the same. I'm going to say work ethic to a certain degree, but also somebody is just easy to get along with, somebody who is there
spend a lot of time with them.
Well, yeah, and somebody who understands, okay, we get a lot of stuff, people come back, it's like, well, this is not how you're supposed to make it. I'm like, well, you know what? This is how we do it. We don't have huge crews necessarily. We have what we feel like we need, and we grow or shrink depending on the size of the project. But we look at people who fit in with the system of how we run it.
Yeah.
And then, you become friends with them over time and have that relationship. But you want to find people that you can work well with, that also creatively and, from a skill level standpoint can give you what you need. And I think that changes over time. When we first started, we didn't know many people, and our level of what we felt we needed our bar was pretty low. And so, we didn't know or have the budgets or the experience to go to the highest level people. Even now, now it's kind of, I have my favorites that I like to work with, and they may not be on high on other people's lists, but they're high on my list because I work well with them. I like the way that they do certain things. And so we try to bring, the people, the crew that we really like back, just because we know what the results are that we're going to get.
Yeah, no, that's something I got a lot, actually. Like when I moved back from New York to Utah, was a lot of, that's not how it's done. And I'd just be like, but we did this way in New York on way bigger things. Yeah. And it was like, I think people, one is just, there's a lot of kind of like, again, it's a lot of posturing, I feel. And a lot of people are kind of like, well, they're trying to intimidate you, basically. And I'm like, no, that's not the way it's done.
Yeah, and I can. And
there's different ways to do different things, right? It's not like there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to make a movie. And
I think it's human nature. Everybody thinks that the way that they do it is the correct way. But there's different ways to do things and have all that really matters is, did you get the final result you needed? Yeah,
exactly. And was it an interesting movie? At the end of the day, that's it. And I think, again, it's easy to fall back, and this applies to all artistic mediums. It's like, if you do X, Y, and Z, that equals a good movie. Not necessarily, So, and also I think it's just kind of leverage, because the behind all that's not the correct way. I feel like the subtext of all of that was, you need to work slower and give me more money.
And it can be. Yep.
That was kind of basically the basic gist. And it's like, I'm like, no, I don't.
Well, and understandably so. Most crew, they come and they do their job, which is what you hire them to do.
Exactly.
But nobody else has a perspective as the director, as a producer, of what you're trying to accomplish. Yeah. They walk away at the end of the day and say, I'm going to go home and do whatever. Yeah. We go home and say, okay, how do I prepare for tomorrow? How do I make sure everything's going smoothly? How do I deal with these other problems? After we wrap at the end of the shoot, we live with the project for months and months trying to get the post-production done. Yeah. And the regular crew goes off and gets another job, which is totally understandable. Yeah. But, perspectives are very different.
Yeah, well, and what you want out of the project is very different.
Well, just like everybody's responsibilities are different. So like we often say, man, it'd be great if everybody understood what everybody else did, because I think we'd all appreciate people's contributions better. But that's just what the film industry is.
Yeah, the film industry is, and honestly, that's just people too.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's like, and again, also people just, I think if you just work during shoots, you have no idea how much work it was to get to the first day of shooting. Yeah. It's a tremendous amount of work. And just because you've had the script in your hands for like an hour, for 2 days, doesn't mean you know how much thought and what they were doing is going on. So So, and also, how do you, I guess you manage crew by working with crew you just like over and over again, which is a good way. And you're doing 4 films a year, so you can,
and like we've done like different projects where sometimes we grow it and, say, okay, this is a bigger project, we need more crew. And what we found on this last project we did this last fall was more people created more problems. And so as the show went on, we started, and it was like a 4-month project. So as it went on, we kind of started, okay, let's scale back here, let's scale back there. And it makes it way easier to manage. Like, I've done shows where we had, 120 person crew, and you need a UPM that just manages people. Yeah. Their job is to deal with the crap because everybody complains. So I like keeping it as small as we can while still getting what we need done. Because and frankly, if you hire good people that you like to be around, that are good to get around, good to work with, you don't have to manage them nearly as much. Yeah. There's stuff that still needs to be done, and you got to make sure everybody's taken care of. But you're not dealing with complainers. If you have people that complain all the time, ideally you find somebody else for the next project. Yeah. And not to say that sometimes it's not justified, but most of the time, we all know those people that just complain no matter what. And those are the ones that we just try to say, hey, we don't have the manpower, the the desire to deal with these problems all the time. So let's just make sure we hire people that we get along well with.
Yeah. If they're used to another way of working, then you're doing them a favor. Like if they're not happy working with you, then why continue?
Yeah.
Yeah. And even then, like I hired a person for a near project and a recent project, and they were like 58 years old. They had 40 years of experience. And I thought just like, wow, I'm totally getting to get complained constantly, never worked, and seriously asked a 20-year-old girl working on the set if he'd photograph her naked. And then got a phone number from the list, her phone number, and texted her later saying, I found the perfect hotel for you to photograph me naked. I mean, that's just absurd behavior. And honestly, you need to be mindful of those people that they're out, because you could actually be held liable for their actions, you know? And we fired him pretty early on for being just incompetent, but there was I'm glad we did. If we found that out after the fact.
Yeah, having a lot of experience does not necessarily make them a good person to have around. Sometimes it does. It means that they know how to get stuff done. Whether or not they do is dependent on the person.
Yeah, well, and also I think it's just kind of like, you know, maybe they were really good at their job 20 years ago, but they've just been coasting or something. You know, they just weren't going to show up for you.
Yeah.
So, but also technology changes, things change. I mean, that was one of the problems with this guy. Like he couldn't adapt to anything that he wasn't using like 40 years ago. And so he just was basically useless. I mean, he was hired as like a chief gaffer, and he ended up being worse than a grip by far. Yeah. And more than that, he just impeded everybody else's work. So anyway, and if anything I've learned, I mean, do you fire people mid-shoot? If I fire people, as soon as they're a problem, I'm just like, see ya. We'll pay you for your 2 days here.
It depends on how long our project is.
Yeah.
Like,
I guess you flew him to Fiji, right?
Yeah. I mean, the longer the project, or the longer I've been doing this, the less patience I have, or the higher level of the more I expect from people.
Yeah.
I mean, I fired actors now. I fired crew.
Really? How do you fire an actor once you already have them on footage?
You go back and reshoot if you have
really?
to.
Okay.
Nope, it's one of those things and you have to decide pretty early on. You don't want to wait till you're, halfway through your shoot and then do it. But after a day, if it doesn't go well on the next day, then it's like, you know what? We're going to make the change now, because the rest of the shoot is not going to go smooth if you're still here. Like
Aragorn in Lord of the Rings. No, that's famously. They fired him the first day of shooting. Yeah. And that's amazing. Because, again, for a show like Lord of the Rings, wow, that's a lot of pre-production.
And so, I think you make the change you need to make things go smoother. Yeah. And same thing with crew. On this other project, we had I wouldn't say a lot, we dealt with more HR problems than any other project, because it was on for 4 months. And some people, most of the crew was great. Other people, we had to make changes as the show went on. Just more of, okay, it's been 2 weeks. Do we want to keep on dealing with this problem, or should we make a change now? And I think most of the time, if you know you're having a problem, you can go talk to the person first and try to resolve it. But if not, make the change. Yeah.
No, and I think people, make the change. I mean, that's a nice way to put it. But yeah, like you want to, if you're having feelings early on, it's not going to get better. That's my experience.
And that's how it was with cast too. We made some changes after we had more of a more of an orientation Zoom call with cast. And after that, we're like, okay, this one actor, we don't want to have him. So we replaced him based off of that. And then his wardrobe fitting, he was just rude to people. We're like, okay, we're just going to, thank you very much. We're going to pay you for your time, and we're not going to bring you to set.
No, in fact,
we replaced him before we even started, just because he was a jerk to people before why are you being a jerk to wardrobe?
No, it's true. And again, I think partially it's like in film, there's kind of like people are maybe not most secure, sometimes not very secure with themselves, and they're excited and they think, okay, when I go in this production, I get to be mean to this level of people, but I can be nice to the producer, and they think it's like a scale.
Well, and I think you were saying a little bit before, everybody likes to talk, and a lot of people like to talk and make themselves appear more experienced, bigger, or than they really are, or hey, I think at this level I should be acting like this. Yeah. And so I don't know if they're always like that, but a lot of times it's. I mean, I have to say, I love working with the actors that come on set, and it doesn't really matter where they're from, but they go around, they meet everybody. Hey, what's your name? I'm this person. How's it going? They say hi every day. They're just nice, good people. And it makes the whole process so much better to work with, to go smoothly, just because they're nice, normal people. Yeah. And that happen to be great in front of camera,
Exactly.
And so I think overall, and that's what we look for with crew, with cast, with every project is, we when we do auditions or when we do callbacks, especially with cast now, what we're really looking for, it's more the job interview part. It's number one is, do they fit the part?
Can they do the
act?
job? Yeah.
Number two is, can I work with you for several weeks now? Do you come across as a nice, good person? Or, and sometimes there's little things that the way they say things or the way they treat you on the call. And it's like, okay, you know what? If I have a choice, I'm going to go with this other route because there's something that might, rub me the wrong way in how we talked. And so I'm going to go with the person that made me feel a little more comfortable.
Yeah. Well, also, especially like if you're casting for a feature film or something, which is really a big deal for an actor. I mean, like they don't get many opportunities. And like, if they're like having problems on such a big opportunity, like there's something off there. Yeah. Right. And also to me, you want to look at to see if they've been through the process before, like if they don't know like what a 12-hour day shooting looks like or how hard it is to do a feature film for an actor, then if it's their first time, they may not really fully get how important what they're doing is or what opportunity it is, especially like if they're 18 or something.
We try to be clearer now with our expectations for actors. This is what we need you to be prepared for. Yeah. You need to know your lines, which you think is basic, but a lot of people show up and don't know their lines. And it's like, if you don't know your lines, I'm not going to have you back the next day, Yeah.
Well, more than that, I mean, once, I guess, crazy. I mean, I cast a project and there's this guy who had studied acting at BYU, I think even. And I cast him. We were going to do just a short rehearsal with the other lead actor. And then I'm waiting with the other lead actor. And he texts me when he was supposed to be there. It's like, oh, I can't come. Something came up. I'm just like, what? Like our first rehearsal? And I just cast you and I'm going to pay you. And so I fired him an hour later. Yeah. So like you're not going to show up to the first rehearsal. The other guys showed up. You wasted both of our time. Yeah. We're not going to proceed with this. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah. I think that's partially, that's just a growing up thing, and he was really mad, but it's like, I didn't owe him anything. I mean, I was giving him the opportunity. I cast him in a project. Right. And that's what it is. So working in film is a privilege. I mean, I think that's what it is. I mean, you look like the alternative, like what a dream. You get to make 60 movies, and you get to go to Fiji and do all that. You think like a lot of other jobs, not as much fun, is it?
Yeah. And granted, on the flip side, there's a lot of work that goes into it and everything else. And, it's a very fun job, but it requires a lot of work. And, there's different ways to make different kinds of projects. And I think the experience is going to be different on every single one of them. But hopefully, if you can be in charge of the process, it's your job to make it as smooth as possible, make it, like we try to keep our sets very calm, in the end, like I used to tell actors as they come in, we take them out to dinner and stuff before the movie starts. And I just tell them, this is what we expect. This is what we want you to do, but do your best. And, we'll be chill with you as long as you're prepared. But in the end, this is just a movie. It's like, I think a lot of people, especially first time directors, get into the mindset of like, this is my dream. I've got to make this is my piece of art, my mark on what I'm leaving for the world. And it's just a movie. Yeah. And nobody else cares about it like you do, which is understandable. But in the end, do your best, but you don't need to yell at people. You don't need to make people miserable. Come in and have a good time and make a good film. No,
that's true. Yeah. And well, again, that's also just the power thing. Like yelling at people. This is a weird thing about when I started working in film. You always hear the stories of the director losing and yelling at. That doesn't really happen. Like they kind of just get really intense. They're like, so what's going to go happen with this? And that's kind of it. That's the quote of being yelled at in a lot of ways. Is just kind of like, so why did this go wrong? Because they know yelling doesn't do anything. I mean, they've been there before.
Oh, I've yelled at people, but yeah.
Have you? Oh, yeah. Well, do you have any stories of production you want to tell? You can drop names and stuff.
No, I'm not going to drop any names. But
I mean, not leave out names. That's what I mean.
I mean, I yelled at an actor because he showed up drunk on set.
Oh, really?
And like could barely stand up straight and couldn't hit a mark. And so, I mean, I went out there and just yelled at him. You can't hit a mark. We like had to try to put AirPods in his ear to feed him lines. It was just horrendous. And he deserved to be yelled at.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
And time went by and he called and apologized. And
but he was fired from the film.
It was our last couple days.
So you couldn't.
And we were overseas. So we kind of, I mean, he was good up to that point.
You should have taken over his part. Yeah, you could just be like, that'd been hilarious. You like put on a wig like him. And
Yeah,
you
no, that would
CGI your face.
But like it was, I mean, it was terrible, and it was just not just unprofessional for the crew. The other actor had to work with them. You know, it was like a very key scene, and we ended up having to reshoot part of it just because to make it work. Because it's like we need this, and we can't have your eyes glazed over. We have to be able to have you say your lines. You know, so but you know, I've yelled at him for that. I've yelled at crew for at some points, and I don't think it's, and maybe I don't know if that's always the best route to go, but I think sometimes. I hate to say it's always you get in the heat of the moment of things, and sometimes yelling is the best way to get it out, as long as you do it, move on, and I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe people don't.
I think it's different people. I mean, different management techniques.
But like, and you know, but I try. You get frustrated, and I think I don't know if yelling is the best way. In that scenario, the whole crew was like, "Good job, good job."
Well, I mean, I think that's the way you need to really show it's wrong.
But for the most part, I think, like going back to what we were talking about before, is if there's problems, I think when I first started off in film, there was a tendency to say, "Okay, well, I can't do anything about it. Let's just let it go."
Yeah.
Now you have to, if you're going to produce and, you know, even direct, you have to be willing to have the hard conversations. Mm-hmm. You know, I've multiple times in lots of different projects, I pulled actors aside and saying, you need to do better tomorrow. You need to know your lines better. You need to do this better and that better. Yeah. And it's, I think, very humbling for the actor. But like, you know, I've had stuff, we've been on location and we ran out of card space because the actor didn't know their lines, and we just had to do so many takes. And you know, I pulled the actor aside and said, I should never have to compromise this because you don't know your lines. So you better be prepared tomorrow. And he was, you know, and I think it's, and so I didn't yell at him in front of everybody, but it's a stern conversation to say, this is the expectation. This is where you failed today and you need to do better.
Yeah. Well, and you're doing them a favor because they want to be successful.
And I hate to say that I'm doing them a favor necessarily, but they're being paid for a job. And they need to perform. Yeah. And, you know, it's one thing if you have a real good excuse, but most of the time it's, you know, when you're sitting around 3 hours beforehand just playing with your phone and then you're not ready, then you're not ready. And that's all on you, you know? And that's what you have to look at. And ultimately, everybody else, if they're going to show up and do their job, then you need to show up and do yours. And whether it's an actor, whether it's another crew member, it really doesn't matter, but people need to show up. And that's what you get paid for. You know, it's ultimately a job, and you better do a good job at it, or else we'll find somebody else.
Yeah, yeah. I guess that's particularly with casting. I mean, that's why, like, I would encourage directors, don't just cast your girlfriend or cast somebody you know, and do multiple auditions. Because in a way, if they're willing to come back to 3 or 4 auditions, that's testing their commitment to you. But because you're really stuck with them. Yeah. I mean, in a lot of ways, like if you have second thoughts, like you have to reshoot, which is incredibly expensive. So, yeah, there's people behind the camera you can fire pretty quickly and replace, but actors, you really do commit to them a lot. Yeah,
and when I first started again, I would fear the actors a little bit of, we can't really make a change now. We're starting to shoot them. Yeah. But I remember one of the first big film that we did, I had an actor that I was working with, and he was really cool, but we were having problems with our actress, and he's like, Brian, you just need to go into her trailer and just yell at her. I was on this TV show, and he was a regular on a series for years. Yeah. It's like, yep, once a week, the producers come in and yell at our lead actresses because they needed it. You know? and I didn't quite agree with that mentality. But, you know, back then, you know, again, I was like, but if I say something, she may not want to come out of her trailer. She may have a problem. Yeah. And I don't think the right approach is to go and yell at people all the time. But I think it is fine to come in and say, hey, here's the expectation. I need you to step up and do this. Yeah. You know, be part of the team and do this. And again, be willing to have the hard conversations. It's, you know, and you can do it in a very nice, professional manner. But we're not, I mean, you shouldn't be coming to set every day just to hang out with your friends. We're coming to get a job done, which is making a movie. Yeah. And everybody
and it's not necessarily fun. I mean.
And we've done it with actors, we've done it with crew. You know, crew is, hey, if you're sitting around talking in the corner all day, either you don't need to be here or you need to get up and do your job, you know? And if you want to go talk to people, go somewhere else to do it, you know, but I'm not going to pay you to go sit in the corner and play with your phone. Yeah. You know, so I think it's fine to have that conversation with people. I think, you know, going back to your story of that one crew member is, if he's not going to cut it and do what you need him to do, then find somebody else who will. Yeah. And it's, you know, it's nothing personal, but here's the job, here's the expectation, and you either do it or you don't. Yeah. So, and I think that's actor and crew. That's everything.
Actor, crew. Yeah. So, yeah. No, I think, I guess like acting, the actors. No, you're right. You need to Yeah.
I mean, you're right in the sense of you have to be careful in the sense you still need them.
Still have to be really careful though. I mean,
well, you need them, but going back to, you shouldn't have to fear them.
Yeah.
You need them, but they need you to direct them and to hold them accountable for what they need to do. And I've talked to actors. I've had problems on a lot of different shows. So I've sent out emails to here cast. You guys are here's from now on, this is how we need to proceed better.
Yeah.
And then I'll have actors come over. Okay, so what can I do? And we have the conversation.
Yeah. Because I do feel they want to look good on camera. I mean, that's ultimate. Like, you look like an idiot if you keep doing what you're doing.
I don't think most of these people showed up today and says, I'm just not going to perform. I'm just going to be a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
I don't think they're coming and purposely trying to sabotage the project. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes they just feel like I can get by and just coast here. And I think it's part of the director's job to say, look, this is the level of, this is my level of what I need you to do.
Yeah.
And coasting doesn't cut it. And I had the conversation recently on another project, and it's like, okay, you think you're here, we need you to be here. And so can you step up and do that? And that person was very appreciative and like, okay, yep, I'll do it. So it's not hey, you're in trouble and you got to do better. It's, I need you to be at this level. Can you do that?
Yeah, no. And that certainly is the correct way of being. And also I feel, especially when you're on a set, there's all these kind of like, I don't know, how do you put this? Like, there's all these kind of personalities, because it takes a different personality to be a good actor than it does to be like a good cinematographer. They're very different people.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's all these personality conflicts because you have all these different skill sets you need, but also there's kind of all these different backgrounds, all different histories. And so your job when you're running the set is to make sure everyone's on the same page and everyone's moving forward in the right direction. Mm-hmm. And actors, I feel like this is a Big Five personality thing. Have you heard of this? The Big Five personality? It's like a psychology thing.
Probably, but yeah.
I'm going to go for it, and I'm going to describe it as it relates to film. And so Big Five, there's like, it's, see if I can remember them all. There's conscientiousness, agreeability, openness, extroversion, and neuroticism. And actors tend to be very high in openness and very high in extroversion. But conscientiousness, kind of mid-level. I mean, because openness and conscientiousness seem to be like inversely correlated to a degree. Like, openness is open to new ideas and new experiences. So you're like, I want to go skydiving. I want to go skinny dipping. Like that type of person. Yeah. And then conscientiousness is kind of like your Ironman athlete or your accountant or something like that. Like, they're just really always on top of things and dependable. And so that's a lot of time that's like your DPs that way, or your AC or your gaffer. So anyway, you have all these personalities, but that's why you always hear like these stories of personal conflicts on set, because you have very conscientious people clash with very high in openness people and vice versa. Yeah. So anyway, but so you don't want any one of those people to take over the set. Yeah. Because that's your set, right? You're the producer, you're the director.
And I think it's important in a very diplomatic way, but you want to control the set. If you run things properly, people will respect you. You don't need them to fear you, but they will respect you because you're in charge. And it's also, like, I mean, you hear stories of, hey, this person wants to do it this way, that person wants to do it that way. I used to have, I've adjusted over time just with good and bad experiences, but I used to talk to the actors and saying, like, here's this. And, with the script, it doesn't have to be word for word, just get the gist of it if you need to, but do that. And then I had an actor that just took it way too far. It's like, well, you said it didn't have to be word for word. So
they were dropping F-bombs and left in this Hallmark movie.
They would come and try to rewrite the scene.
Oh, really?
and it's like, okay, I don't like this scene. Let's cut it. Like, no. And so it finally had to come to the point of, you know what? I'm not going to give you the latitude anymore. I'm in charge, and we're going to do it this way. And this is the project you signed on to do. Yeah. And if you want to have a discussion about the scene, let's talk about it. But ultimately, the script is a guideline, and we're going to stay as close to it as we can. And it's been a lot smoother because, again, I set the expectation. This is how we're doing it. I think a lot of people want to be writers. A lot of people have creative ideas, which is fine, but you have to have one director. Yeah. You have one person in charge, and it's not a democracy where you can just say, hey, how do you want to do this? You need to come in and make your vision clear of this is how it needs to be, and do a good job at that so that they can give you what you need. Yeah.
And also, I mean, just everybody's not Billy Crystal. I'm sorry, and everybody wants to be Billy Crystal, but you're not. And
again, it will change based on the project. When you're doing a lot of improv stuff, okay, you're giving them that license to do that. Most stuff that's scripted it needs to be a certain way.
Yeah. Well, and also, if you think about famously in Princess Bride, the Miracle Max, Billy Crystal scene is like mostly all improv.
Yeah.
But partially that scene could be because there's only 2 or 3 plot things that need to occur during that scene.
Yeah.
And also Billy Crystal, he's working within the realm of the story and the character and where he's at very well because he's skilled. But yeah, you'll meet people who try to rewrite the whole movie. I know, really, I've had that. In fact, one time I was directing an actor. This was for a short film, and it was a very simple short film. And I was like, okay, I need you to do this, this, and this. And he was like, no, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And I was like that every single time. And I just couldn't believe it. And anyway, ended up being a terrible movie, and I just canned it. Because, again, he didn't want to make a terrible movie, but if he wanted to make another movie, he can go make another movie, you know? But you need to realize, like, no, you've thought about this, you're the one with the experience, but they don't necessarily know what you're doing. So you just say, like, no, this movie we're doing right now. Yeah. So, or you just recast, which just perfectly on a short film, that's virtually impossible because it's one day.
You go back and redo it, or you learn from it and hopefully don't make the mistake again.
Exactly. Yeah. So do you have any stories in horror stories in distribution or anything? Because
not necessarily horror distribution, like we were talking a little bit before we started about, when we first started off, we were distributing VHS and went to DVD. I guess for filmmakers out there, we mentioned this a little bit earlier, is the way you become a filmmaker full time is you have to make money.
Exactly.
So
and it's a lot of money. Like 7, 6, you got to make a lot of money. Well,
not necessarily, but like your goal, like I'd always...
Well, to turn a profit, right? Well, even if you spend $50,000 on a movie, you've got to make way more than that.
Ultimately, like when I meet with filmmakers and they say, hey, I have this idea and stuff, I always like to ask, what's your goal? Yeah. So are you trying to go to theaters? Do you want your name up in lights? Do you want the critical acclaim, or do you want to make money? Yeah. And then you come back, all of them. Okay, but if you had to pick one, what is your goal? Yeah. And it's all right if it's not to make money, but know that that's not your goal. For us, if you want to do this long term, every project needs to be, you're an entrepreneur if you're a producer. Yeah. Or you should be. And you're creating a product that you need to take to market, and it needs to be monetized and bring in revenue. So when you think about it from a business aspect is, there might be an artistic process to make that product, but you have to make a product that will sell to consumers. Yes. And so if you want to, again, like if you want to do this long term, you have to say, okay, is this film the film that can do this? If it's a film about your personal story when you were 10 years old and how your dog died, it's probably not going to do that great. And everybody famous Swedish film, My Life as a Dog. Anyway, but I can't tell you how many times people pitch ideas. Here, this is based on my story. I'm like, but is your story marketable? I know it might have a place in your heart, and that's great, but is it marketable enough to keep doing to put it out there for audiences? And so, like I said, we make a lot of rom-coms. Yeah. Why do we make rom-coms? Because there's an audience for them. Yeah. It's not that it's a genre. You find a genre, like horror is some people's genre. Yeah, and you can make different genres. We've done some action movies. We've done some different, I just did a horror movie in December. So, you can do different genres.
The horror of romance. It's a horror romantic comedy.
But you have to, again, keep in mind, where is this going to go? How am I going to make my money back? And how am I going to make money long-term on it? Yeah. And so, and then going back to, when it's now, how do you make money on it? Well, you and I were talking before about how so a lot of times filmmakers drive the budgets up. They pay themselves a lot of money. They do a lot of stuff that kind of sabotages the success of their project before they even start. Yeah. And again, if you want to make one film and get paid and just be done, okay, you can do that. Yeah. But if you want to make this your career and do it for a lot and do it over and over and over again, it's find what's the film you should make. Okay, what's the right budget to make it for? Yeah. People are like, what's the budget you should make it for? I'm like, it depends on the film, but ultimately I always answer is you want to make it for as inexpensive as possible without sacrificing the quality of what you need. Yeah. And whether it's making it with 3 guys or, 50 or 100 crew, it really doesn't matter as long as you have a good marketable film in the end. Yes. Like viewers don't care about the process. They don't care if you film for 6 months or if you film for 6 days.
They just want a good movie. Yeah. That's it.
And so your job as a producer and a director is to make that film and finish it and get it out there. And like you said, whether it's $50,000 or $50 million, it still has to be thought out of, hey, if I do this is how it's going to get the right distribution and find the audience and make its money back and make money for us long term. Distribution is interesting because, like I was saying, we started off in physical media with VHS and DVD. We had our stint with theatrical, which was always, some people have done very well with theatrical. It's a lot of work and very, very little money in our experience. But streaming is interesting because it has opened up. I mean, we do a lot of stuff with broadcasters, and then streaming is.
Quincy, on theatrical, this is one thing I think happens. Just because you've thought about your movie a lot doesn't mean anybody else has. And like getting somebody to like get in a car, drive to a theater, get out of a theater, go sit, buy a ticket is incredibly difficult.
Yeah, and it's becoming more and more so.
More and more so, yeah. Even Wicked, it made $600 million, which is a tremendous amount of money. But how much they spent on marketing that movie and stuff, I bet that lost hundreds of millions.
No, yeah, we would spend hundreds of thousands of dollars just along the corridor here with billboards and TV ads and stuff. And then people are like, I've never heard about your film. And it's hard to reach them. And so, it's a very difficult process. Some people have done it very well, but it's a very hard process. And so like broadcast has been great for us. Digital is very different. So like it used to be you sell the DVD and a filmmaker, you get $8 to $10 for your DVD as far as like after all the costs and stuff like that, or maybe $5 or something.
But, which is pretty good. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. But now with streaming, I mean, Amazon pays 4 cents an hour. So 4 cents an hour. So if you have a 90-minute movie and somebody watches all the way through, you got 6 cents, 6 pennies. Okay. So it's ridiculous what you get paid. But what Amazon has that you don't get anywhere else is they have a lot of eyeballs. So if you get 10 million people to watch that, you've actually made some decent money. And it's not absurd to get 10 million people to watch your movie, And so it's one of those things where digital has made it a lot cheaper to get our films out. We don't have to make the DVDs. We don't have to ship them. You don't have to deal with returns and all this other stuff. You upload it to, you have to we're the distributor, so it's a little bit more streamlined for us. But you upload it to the servers, you deliver it there after you pitch it and get picked up by those platforms, and that's your cost.
Do you have any marketing?
Most of our films, we don't market. Because you have to
People just like, romantic comedy, I want to see this.
You have to have a great thumbnail or a great poster, a good title. And
so that's your marketing.
Well, that and like the way at least Amazon works, for example, is anything that we put up under our account points to other projects within our library. So now when people watch some of our films that have been up there for 5 years, it recommends our other films.
Oh, really? Do you brand your films at all? Are you like, this is Brian? Like
I don't
the name
Brian
above
Brough,
the title kind of thing? This is a
not
Robert.
for me. We have our company brand. But
you have a company brand?
But but the algorithm itself knows that, hey, it's coming from this account, so let me point to other films in this account.
Okay. And if they liked it, they watch another one.
Yeah. And we've had filmmakers tell us, it's like, back when anybody can get on Amazon, they're like, I released it myself and nobody would watch it. I released it under you guys and I had all these views. Because the algorithm rewards you for having more than 1 or 2 films on there. And so, there is some power in working with a distributor because the discoverability is greater. So, digital, they pay you pennies for things, but your costs are lower. You still got to get people to watch it. Even like YouTube has turned into a great revenue stream for a lot of filmmakers now. It used to be great for cat videos and little things, but now, you watch, not just
there's feature-length Hollywood films on there for free too.
And every ad that plays, you make a little something. So it's great to be able to have it out there.
Oh, really? So what are your main distribution platforms then?
We used to work with Netflix a lot in the early days. Now we do a lot with, so we work with Amazon, Tubi, Roku channel, Plex, YouTube is a big one for us now. A lot of smaller ones like library.
So a lot of ad supported.
Almost everything's ad supported now.
Stream support, ad supported.
SVOD. The only real SVODs out there are you have like Disney Plus and Netflix and Hulu and stuff, and even they have ad supported or
they have ad supported
components now.
Options,
But so AVOD is. If we were talking before about, hey, Netflix pays you this one fee, and no matter how you do, you don't get to share in that. The great thing about rev share is, with ad supported, is if your film does well, you can make a lot of money. If it doesn't do well, it's because nobody watched your film.
Look for the horror of romance. I think that's cross genre win. The horror of romance. It can be like a horror movie and a romance combined. Actually, there was a movie like that about meeting the in-laws. It's a movie about hide and seek. I don't know. Catch Me. Anyway, it was hilarious. I love it. So that's fantastic. So one thing, do you see yourself doing this for like another 10 or 20 years? Like, do you think you found your niche doing your thing doing romance? I don't want to call it.
I don't know about romance.
Yeah.
We actually just did our first series.
Yeah.
So we have
a TV series.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we had like 8 1-hour episodes that we just shot. We're getting ready to start up on season 2 in a couple months. Right now we're in post-production on that, and we're starting to shop it around, trying to see, we can distribute ourselves through our own avenues, but we're trying to find a bigger home for it if we can.
Yeah, for the long form content. So the reward is higher, but the risk is also greater because there's so much work in that one story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've been doing that. That's what we did for a long time this last fall. And so that's been, so like rom-coms have been great. We'll still do some rom-coms here and there, but like even at that, people's, viewers' tastes evolve. It used to be horror was a genre that everybody wanted. All the distributors wanted it and said it was insatiable until it became satiated.
Until Saw 25 came out.
And then I think horror is, reviving a little bit now, but rom-coms have been very good. Then they take a downturn. They might be coming back.
They're coming up. It's funny because there was like time in the aughts where rom-coms didn't even exist. It seemed, but 90s they were big, but now they're back.
Well, and Hallmark's kind of taken over the rom-com space. Yeah. I think they're starting to come back from a studio level, but ultimately what happened was they're spending $200 million on a rom-com. It's like, you can't make, the expectation is different. We want to spend $200 million on a Marvel movie. That's one thing. Yeah. But you had that, there's a Reese Witherspoon one with her and a couple other, some big names, and they spent so much money on it, and it wasn't a good movie that was like, oh, the rom-com, it just didn't work. It's like, well, your formula didn't work.
Yeah. I've got a theory on this. You can give me your opinion. I'm totally okay with being wrong. Is that there's, in publishing, romance novels have been a huge part of it. Like you go to Barnes & Noble, there's several shelves of romance novels. And just film production has gotten down to, the cost has gotten down to the point of making a movie that you can have the volume of like a romantic comedy. And it's kind of taking those same people who read romance novels. Now they can get their volume and the diversity of stories in a video format as well. Yeah. So it's really kind of going to the romance novel reader, the highly engaged group can get that more in video form. And
my theory with rom-coms for us is, I know people that love rom-coms and they don't watch it once, they watch it 10 times.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's nice to have those repeat viewers. That being said, I think because it was so much in demand for a while, there's a lot of really crappy rom-coms that were made.
That was fine. I don't know.
And there's companies that, 100 a year.
Any genre has horrendous content in it. But,
when it goes and floods the market, then people now go, oh, I don't like rom-coms anymore. It's like, well, no, you just didn't like those movies,
Yeah, I think,
It's hard to blame the whole genre just because you didn't like a movie.
Yeah, well, I think also there's certain like aspects of a genre, particularly romance. Actually, I found this with people is that romance, like there's maybe people have had different romantic experiences, and maybe there's like some feelings there, and they don't like seeing two people fall in love. Yeah, and that has more to do with them than the genre. But I think like romantic comedies and any genre like science fiction or fantasy, there's certain things that are core to it that appeal to people. And if it's not for you, that's fine. Yeah. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, I love, my whole family's super into fantasy, and I'm just kind of not. Like, they'll read all the fantasy novels and it's fine. Yeah. That's it. And it's nothing against it. I'm the same way.
There's certain genres I like, other genres I just don't get into as much. And that's what's great, honestly, is not everybody needs to like everything. Yeah. But as a producer, when you make a film, you need to make sure enough people like what you want to make, because you do need to have that viewership.
Well, and I do think like for independent filmmakers, they make the mistake of thinking, well, I need to make a movie that is so different than everything else. First of all, that's impossible. Not going to happen. Like even like Raging Bull is a boxing sports movie. That's it. It's just a really, really good boxing sports movie, but it's still a boxing sports movie. And so most of the really great films actually operate within a genre. They just kind of like get that extra level.
They just made a better story, or they elevated it in some way. And I think it goes back to, again, what are you trying to accomplish with your film? Yeah. I think a lot of people are trying to get into Sundance, or I want to make something different and quirky and put my stamp on it. Great. If that's your goal, to do that so you can get into a Sundance or get into whatever film festival and get noticed, it's great. At least be honest about what your goal is. Yeah. If your goal is to make money, that may not always line up, but that's fine, as long as everybody involved realizes your goal is to make a quirky film and get into whatever film festival.
Yeah. Well, and also it's like you're always operating in genre, whether you realize it or not. Like Sundance's genre is the coming of age film, because a lot of young filmmakers are growing up, and like My Life, previously mentioned, My Life as a Dog, famous Swedish film by Lasse Hallström, is a coming of age film. Yeah. And
and they can do well. It's just again, and everybody, like musicals is a great example. You were saying that, Wicked did phenomenally well. It doesn't necessarily mean that everybody wants a musical. It means that they liked Wicked, or Greatest Showman was another thing. It's like, oh, I'm going to make a musical because people like it now. And part of it is make a good film, and all the reasons that people give you to not make that kind of genre, it doesn't matter as long as you made a good enough film that people want to watch. But don't always think that you're going to be that person, especially as an independent producer, is you really only get one or two tries to prove that you can do it. And if it doesn't work, you're kind of done. If it does work,
and honestly, you'll be done yourself. You'll be like, I just can't put myself into this again.
Well,
can't
what
put
we've
myself
seen
through it.
time and time again as a distributor is so many filmmakers come in and blame the poor performance on the distributor, which can be the case.
It can happen.
But a lot of times it's, like I had actually another distributor called me up once and it's like, how are you getting people to watch your films? I can tell that people are watching your films, but they're not watching ours. And I'm like,
graphic nudity, lots of graphic kitty. The films are the exact opposite.
But we said it's like we don't do any marketing. We try to make good films. Yeah. And if people watch your film and like it, they share it with other people. If they watch your film and don't like it, they turn it off early. Now you don't even get the 6 cents on Amazon, you get a penny, Yeah. And so, we try to tell filmmakers ultimately how well your film does depends on how good of a movie did you make. And that's really the test of it is if it performs well, and that's not 100% true, but it's mostly true that if you make a good film that audiences enjoy watching, it'll find its audience and bring in money. If you make a movie that's miserable to watch, most people will turn it off and not watch it all the way through, and it will trickle down really, really fast because nobody's watching it. Nobody's saying, hey, this is a great film. They said, oh, stay away from that one.
Yeah. No, and that's coincidentally, this is a great example for art. So like one time I was in the New York subway, and there's this guy with his girlfriend they're both very young, probably 18, 19. And he was singing this really angry rock song. And he was just slamming his guitar. And I'm not saying it was necessarily a bad song, but I can tell you everyone at the subway stop was just kind of looking away from him and trying to avoid it because they're waiting for the subway. They don't want an angry rock song. Yeah. And this older guy who's clearly, in New York City, if you're not aware, they make little designated areas for street musicians so they can perform. You can sign up for time blocks there. And so this older musician showed up, and he's like, the guy's time was up and he was taking over. He's like, dude, why are you being so mean? I mean, tone it down. And the young angry male was like, whatever, and like stormed off. That they just didn't appreciate his art. And this guy, he opened up with like the cheeriest 60s song about sunshine, and just he immediately had everybody's attention. Yeah. So even if you want to explore like maybe some darker elements or stuff, you've got to give something to the audience. Yeah. You got to give them something to keep them in there. And I'm not saying you have to do like every song about sunshine or every movie about sunshine, but you don't get that.
You have to find your audience, though.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you got to keep your audience entertained to a degree. I mean, I don't know. That's something they don't talk about in film school very often.
Well, I mean, like for example, if you want to make a horror film that's going to go to Shudder, your audience is there. Yeah. If you're trying to make a faith-based film, you go to PureFlix because your audience is there. Yeah. You don't go to Shudder with your faith-based movie.
That would be great, though. No, I'm kidding.
But again, I think it's be realistic about what you're making, who it's for. You're not making a movie for everybody.
Yeah. Well, and your angry rock song might play better at a club at 11 at night, not the subway.
Yeah. Yeah. But like so many people are like, who's this movie for? Everyone. It's like, but who's it really for? Yeah. Our rom-coms are not for everybody. They're for the women that like to watch rom-coms, and they're
not for 40-year-old divorced men.
And there might be some there.
They're like, it's all a lie. It's all a lie. Nobody falls in love ever. But
you'll have your primary audience, your secondary audience, but know who you're making the movie for again and how you're going to make your money back. Because, I think the biggest challenge with independent filmmaking is, there's two aspects to it. Number one is there's never been a better time to an easier time to make films. Like, I mean, I'm not recommending you go make one with your phone, but you can make a movie with your phone now. You can make it, I mean, you go buy cameras for very inexpensive.
Yeah, honestly, I own a rental company again. The Sony FX series, astonishingly good. Like, I think of the quality of cameras when I started, that like were in the $5,000 range.
I bought an FX3 yesterday.
Did you? Amazing camera.
I wanted a small little portable insert kind of camera without having to take the big camera. So,
I mean, you could shoot a feature film with a Sony FX3, and I don't think anybody would be like, "That's a garbage camera."
Oh yeah, and I mean, it's a $4,000 camera. So I mean, it's amazing that you can make this stuff now, but you still need to. So it's really easy. It's a lot easier than it used to be able to have the equipment, the technical side of making films. But you still need to have a plan of how to get it out there, how to make your money back. Because whether you make a $20,000 film or a huge film, you still have to make your money back and go through the process, or do it for free. You know, get your friends together, make something on weekends, start with a short film, or then go off and make a feature film and do it over a couple months. You know, go through the process of not just shooting, but the post-production process. It's amazing how many filmmakers shoot a film and never finish it because the post is too hard.
Post is really hard.
Yeah.
It's hard as shooting.
You got to finish it at a level that can be distributable, which means, you know, you have to color it. You have to get the sound right. You got to make sure it meets the legal broadcast requirements when you go places. You have to get it captioned. You have to go and have the paperwork to back it up. You know, you have to have the chain of title and music licenses and contracts with your actors and crew and releases and all this stuff, or else you made a film that can't be distributed.
No, it's true. And again, and also to me, a hard thing is, I mean, I'm sure you have an opinion, is that getting like good actors? I don't know. Like, you watch films anyway, I would say the bare minimum equipment wise you could do to get a really a quality film would be like a Sony FX3. I'd get a good quality mic, like an NTG5, Rode NTG5, or a Sennheiser 416, $500 to $1,000 mic, because that goes a long way. A Zoom recorder, you know, which is like, again, around $500 cost. And then I get you could get from us, or many people, like a basic lighting kit, but you can do a lot with the diffusion and a piece of foam core, quite frankly. Yeah, I mean, I mean, one of the first things we did when I was in college, I helped produce a short film, but it was the director and the other producer. He had a great idea. It's more of, what do we have access to? And let me make a movie based around that. 100% good idea. And so I was like, okay, if we do it in the snow, we don't need as much light because we get that, it's soft and we get that bounce up and everything else. And then what can we do? And I have access to these kind of actors and this kind of costumes. And he came up with a short film that he did a feature film on and did very well afterwards. But it was more of, what can I do with high production value where I don't have to spend a lot of money? No, it's true. Like, one of my most successful shorts I did is because I knew an actor who I'd seen in a skit, and I was like, that guy's hilarious with a cape. And I wrote the whole movie around him with a cape. Yeah. And it turned out to be a huge success. Cool. And again, I just shot it like in 6 hours with my dad's video camera. Yeah. So, like, if you have a good story, good actor, and you just find something that you think works, I do think it's a leap with movies in general is to think visually. Like, I had a story, but he was really funny with a cape was the thesis of the film. So, okay. So, well, we're covering a lot of territory. You're really good at answering these questions. What do you try? I don't know. What future do you see in filmmaking? And it seems like the ad-supported streaming has really been a boon to independent filmmaking. Yeah, I mean, I think it's, you don't have the DVDs, you don't have the margins that you do on DVDs. But again, if you make the film that people watch, it can perform well. Something that does very well for us is, or they call them fast channels, which is free ad-supported streaming. So it's going back to kind of having your TV guide listing. And now you can get it on websites, or even with your Vizio or LG or Samsung TV. They have these guides now where you have 24/7 streaming. And surprisingly, people watch that a lot. They turn on the Wheel of Fortune channel. They turn on whatever. We have, as a distributor, we actually have channels that we own that go off and just shows our rom-coms. And it's not just our films. We have a lot of other films that people license to us that we put out there as well. And people like to turn on the TV and just let it play.
So, I mean, that's been a nice to see that. Again, I think there's a misconception that if I consume media this way, this is how everybody consumes media.
It's true.
And the reality is people watch things, all different kind of things in all different kinds of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And making it available in a lot of different ways is great. It's put it out there in as many ways as makes sense at the right time. And, to try to find that audience and get the viewership.
Yep. Not everybody wants to see Raging Bull. And honestly, I love the movie, but I've only seen it 3 times because it's kind of hard to watch. But if you're not familiar with it, Raging Bull is a movie about a boxer by Martin Scorsese that was made in the 80s. That's popular among film folks. So, yeah, well, thanks for coming. But wait, actually, I did want to ask you that. One thing, he adds a lot of Brian here adds a lot of production value to his films by working in exotic locales that you'd want to go on a vacation on. What is it like shooting at these like Tahiti, these really picturesque places?
It's great, like in the sense
gorgeous.
of it works really well for rom-coms because you want the pretty location. It's great to fall in love in the very exotic location.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it just because creatively we've done a lot of films, locally here, and it's nice to go off and
a pretty village with the perfect guy just waiting for you.
So it's nice to go and have like
after you leave your hectic jog from New York.
Different backgrounds and different things to do. So, I mean, there's always challenges with filming in different locations. A lot of times we own most of our own equipment now. So we actually travel with it. We have travel packages that we go and take most of it. If the country we go to has the infrastructure where we can rent it and get a decent price, we'll do that. Yeah, I mean, there's different challenges with it, but it's always a fun process to go and creatively have something new to work with.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you how do the governments work with you, or permits an issue, or
it all depends on where you go.
Do you just ask forgiveness, not permission sometimes?
No, like, I mean, so if you want to go film if you want to go to Turkey, you need to get a visa to come in and actually film there. So you have to have permissions. We did the same thing in Indonesia. You go to Tahiti though, and it's, just come in and do whatever. So it varies from place to place. Within reason.
How do you find out what their restrictions are?
You go onto their website
and they'll have like a film in
every
Tahiti
country
thing.
Seems to have a film commission, maybe not very well developed, but they have something and say, here's the guidelines.
Okay.
And so, I mean, do your homework because you don't want to have problems. I just bought, we're going to the Scandinavian countries in a couple months and to scout, and we'll film there this summer. And I looked specifically on what is it like to film in these different countries.
They're pretty expensive countries, but they have great landscape like Norway and stuff. Yeah.
I mean, they can be, but again, you set it up in a way that's affordable.
Yeah.
But, I picked the country that, okay, this the way that the rules work in this country line up with how we want to make our movie. So let's pick this country versus the other countries.
Okay.
And that's how, a lot of what we look at is, I don't like to go to a place that's going to be super film savvy, because then you have to come in and they have all the rules and regulations. Yeah. You go to places that don't have as big of a film.
You don't want them to be burned too many times before.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So which country did you pick?
Finland.
Finland? Okay. Yep. That's good.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So yeah, no, that's something, I mean, a difference between like, if you film in LA, I mean, where of course everybody's been burned a million times in every location. I mean, well, I would say burned, like they're fully aware of the huge impact a film crew can have on their location, that there's really a lot of stuff and there's a lot of laws. But in Utah, and again, this is changing to a degree because we've had some productions go through. It's just kind of like, can we shut down this road? Sure. Can we shut down for a month? No problem.
I think it used to be that way. Utah's gotten more expensive.
It has,
a lot harder to do things.
Yeah.
Which is understandable. Again,
this was about 15 years ago.
Yeah. No, yeah, you used to be able to get away with a lot more than you can now.
Yeah. Well, again, and I think that's the thing that's changed in the industry. And I mean, I think it's easy to be nostalgic about when there were 5 TV channels and everybody went to the movie theaters. But now we have a lot more distribution channels. It's a lot cheaper to make a movie. And so you have a lot more people doing it. So that's a good thing. And, a lot of people might not have been in the movie if we still had 5 channels and that. But at the same time, there's a lot more people doing it.
Yeah.
And so you got to be, there's more competition, I guess. It used to be like, what was it? Alex Rodriguez? Like if you go back and watch his Sundance movie that kind of launched his whole career, it's really not that exciting. But at the time, it was just like unthinkable for somebody like to shoot a movie on film all by themselves, basically. So anyway, the standard's higher, but anyway, there are more ways to make a living doing film, like a lot.
Yeah.
And In fact, when you started, you probably never, like streaming services, who could have thought of those? You know,
I mean, it didn't exist back then.
It didn't exist back then.
I mean, you have to be willing to evolve, and that's what we've done well as a distribution company. Is, you know, it's still about having the film to distribute, but how you get it out to people is different. You know, like a lot of people watch it on their phone now, but back when we started, there was no streaming. You know, it was. I mean, again, we started back in the VHS days. So,
well, a lot of people. I mean, I remember. I won't say a name because there's probably them. Anyway, there's like subscription VHS services back there, and you could get like a VHS of the month. It's like wholesome movie every month. And it's like, and you don't see that same player anymore because they didn't pivot to these other distribution mediums. So it's amazing you've had the foresight and the flexibility as a filmmaker, as an entrepreneur, to really adapt to. Let's see here, you got VHS, we have theatrical. To 3 major film distribution changes that have happened in the past 20 years. Like we're living through.
Well, and even digital, you know, it started off with Netflix and all the SVODs, and then it slowly switched to where everybody's an AVOD, and then now it's the SVOD AVOD hybrid is the thing right now. You have fast channels, and so even digital over the last 5 years has evolved considerably, and we may not really pay attention to it, but it's you know, it's. Even within digital, there's still changes being made all the time. And I think you'll still see other changes coming up that we don't even expect. And that's fine. We just have to make sure that you're at the forefront. Like we were very fortunate to get a fast channel when it was brand new. And people were like, I don't need a fast channel. But we've put in a lot of money and we had to train people and figure it out and partner with other companies to be able to deliver these pipelines of content. But after a couple of years, now you can't get a fast channel and we have ours. And so if you want to get out there, it's really, really, really hard to get in because the early adopters are the ones that have the space now. And so it's really trying to have the foresight to say, yes, we're going to invest in this because we see this as being an avenue for the future. And, you know, you have to take risks and hopefully
it works out. Well, this is my motto in life. All change is an opportunity. Even though you think like, oh, this is not the way it used to be, or I used to have this skill set and maybe it's not as valuable now. But if there's a change going on, there's opportunity and there'll be winners and losers. And if you're the one who surfs with the change, it will be a good thing for you. And clearly you've done that. And honestly, I feel in the next 5 years, we're going to have major changes in the studio system, major changes in theatrical, even more. You know,
I think you'll see like more indie players come up because what's happening right now is the studios are buying your indie streamers. So Fox bought Tubi, for example. You just had Walmart bought Vizio. And so,
really? Walmart bought Vizio?
And so they bought the TV. They have the TV sets, but they also have all the apps, all the streaming that happens through the Vizio set-top boxes. You know, you have Disney, I think, fully bought out Hulu. You know, so you have all these platforms that the studios are coming in and saying, well, you have the audience, we have a library, let's come in and buy it, and we'll kick out the independents and just do it ourselves. And so as a result, I think you'll see... my guess would be you'll have somebody else come in, and I mean, Amazon bought MGM, and now they have a huge library that they can release. You know, this is years ago, but so you have a lot of. There's still, I think, a place somewhere for another indie platform to come up and say, okay, how do you get your content out there? Because like when Hulu started, when Netflix started, like all of our films are on there because they needed us. They're like, oh, we need more content, you know? Then years later, they said, oh, we're making so much money, we don't need you. We're going to just do the huge films. And so then they kicked off a lot of the indies. So you go to the other places like Tubi, and then Fox bought them. So now they're slowly reducing the number of distributors they work with and reducing the content that they pick up. So I think you'll still see that happen more so with Tubi. And, you know, Roku channel right now is independent. There's talk of somebody might be buying them. You know, I wouldn't say that they're going to buy them, but there's talk of that it would be a good acquisition for some of the studios.
I can totally see that. I don't see that staying independent.
You know, and so, I mean, it's worth a lot of money because they've done a great job being in people's homes and getting content out there. So if somebody buys them, then at some point they're going to slowly reduce the number of indie films that go on there. So I think there's a space for indies again. YouTube has kind of filled that space a lot. But who knows? We'll see kind of how things continue to evolve, and we just have to try to keep up with it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, one thing that's hanging over all the major studios is they really incurred a lot of debt in the last 5 years, like a lot. And it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with that. I mean, I don't know if there's a real
and this is what's mind blowing to me, and this is a whole nother topic, but I'm constantly amazed at the thought that both studios have, producers have, and even crew members have that, hey, you just need to keep on throwing more money at stuff.
Yeah.
You know, the idea, I mean, Disney was spending what, $50 million an episode for their one of their Star Wars series or something like
and
that.
then nobody would watch it.
Yeah, it's like, why do you need to spend $50 million for a 40-minute show? Yeah. You know, it's ridiculous and it's not sustainable. So they're just incurring a lot of debt. And I think that there's the thought of you throw enough money at something that people will watch it. But I think, again, from a business standpoint, it still has to make sense, you know? And I think you've been on set. There's so much waste on film sets.
Amazing what a waste.
And
oh my goodness.
I think if people are willing to be efficient and be responsible fiscally for the budget that they have and what they need to accomplish, you can make great shows for a fraction of the cost of what people are spending, even with big cast and all this other stuff. But they don't do it because nobody wants to give money back. Everybody wants the prices to go up. Yeah. You know, nobody wants to make $200 a day. They want to make $2,000 a day. I get that. Yeah, that's human nature. Everybody wants to make more money, but it has to be sustainable.
Yeah, you can't go out of business.
And that's what I think what happened with the strikes that happened, a couple of years ago is, yes, supposedly the unions got what they wanted, but then no, they're not. Now the studios aren't hiring anybody.
Yeah, in fact, I talked to a very connected person in LA just a couple months ago, and they said Netflix is now making more movies outside of the US than in the US. Yeah. And their theory was it was the union contracts.
Yeah. It's just gotten too expensive for most people to make those kind of to abide by those contracts. And yeah, there's always the whole let's vilify the studios and they're making so much money. I'm like, yes and no. I think there's always that perception they're making more money than they really are. That being said certain people are making way more money than they should too. The CEOs make a lot of money, and that's just how corporate America works, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean that all that money should go to the actors or the writers or the crew. It means, in my opinion, that everybody should be more fiscally responsible. And, there's the whole argument of I got to get paid a living wage. Well, that's debatable what that living wage is and for how long and what is the job you're doing. And I'm all for it. Yeah, pay people a living wage. But it has to be within a producer standpoint, it has to be sustainable or else you don't make another one.
You don't make another movie.
And would you rather make this rate and work all the time or a higher rate and not work at all?
Yeah. And again, I think
it depends.
And that's the nice thing about today is there really is more volume of work. Mm-hmm. So it used to be like you need to get on something, get paid a ton, you'd work for 2 months and then it'd be less. But there's so much work going on. I mean, that is an advantage. I mean, and of course, that labor dispute thing, that's super complicated. And, that's like the history of Hollywood. In fact, I'm reading this. If you want a good book about the history of film, read an autobiography about Walt Disney, because he started when Hollywood was very young and went through all of that. Yeah. But I think, what am I going to say? The future, if you think the one thing the future is going to be like, it's not going to be like the past. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, 100% the way it's going to be. And I think you can see that shaking out in a lot of different ways. And we'll just have to wait and see. But I think with, if you're working on a movie, one, it's a privilege to work in the field and you want to get paid well, but you also don't want to destroy the project. Because there is a different philosophy. We talked about this briefly before we started. I mean, is that with railroads, I read this autobiography of Andrew Carnegie, and with railroads, when railroads were really big, like right after the Civil War, like there's two ways to make money. The main way people made money on railroads was the people who built the railroad would get investors, overcharge for everything, like every iron rail, every railroad tie, and then the railroad company would go bankrupt. The investors would lose all their money, but the people who built the railroad made a lot of money. And that can work in a hyper-inflated kind of boom time era, but you're not going to get those investors ever again. Yeah. And you're not going to be able to do it again. And so if you're working like in a small market of film, you want to make sure everybody wins long term. Mm-hmm. And if you want to do this for like a decade or 2 decades, mm-hmm. But if you're like, well, I just don't care, I'm going to make one movie and then be done with the field, which I don't think anybody sets out to do, but you don't want to get a reputation of I'm the guy who loses everybody's money because you won't work again. Yeah.
And the other thing we said was, as a producer and a director is, do you believe in your film? Yeah. If you believe in your film, you should be trying to make the best film possible and getting it out to the biggest biggest audience possible and make the most money possible for you and the investors.
Yeah.
If you're going in and taking a huge paycheck because you feel like that's what you're supposed to get paid, I'm not saying not to pay yourself, but if you're taking an absurd paycheck because that's what Hollywood does, then you're kind of, like you said, you're railroading the project in the sense that you're making it harder to recoup. You're saying, I want to get paid once instead of having this movie perform well long term.
Yeah.
And for us, it's always been, we believe in our films. We want to get it out there. So, again, it's all right. I mean, I've heard so many, like there's another director I work with, and, he pays himself just a fair rate, nothing huge. That people are like, that's all you get paid. But he's like, yeah, but then I own the film. I have the back end and I get all this, and that's how you make your money. Whereas other people I know is like, I'm never going to see anything else. Let me just get it all up front.
Yeah.
And, you can do whatever works for you. But if you want to make it films over and over and over again, you need to make it sustainable by making fiscally responsible movies as a producer, so they can recoup the money and your investors will be happy and keep on doing it.
Yeah. Well, I think another trap you can fall in, first of all, another trap as far as how budgets get out of hand. You get all these people, and if you haven't made a few movies, they can tell you like, well, I'm sound department. I need all this money. I need this money. You don't know, like put a check on it or what they actually need. So you're kind of just trusting them. But again, they've got their agenda. They've got their things they're going for. And yeah, you don't need to necessarily follow that. Like keep your budgets in line and be very, very careful. And because also you just never know what's going to come up, like what's going to come up in post-production and stuff. You want to get to that finish line. The worst thing is you don't get to the finish line. And so, and again, get people who have worked on similar projects to what you want to make. If you're pulling people who have only worked on Hollywood stuff, that's probably not a good fit. And even then, like there's a perception of like, well, this Hollywood person I read got paid this amount, but is it really true? Like again, you don't really know those numbers. You go talk, what is it? I heard a Disney Channel actress talk about it. Like some celebrity website was saying that she was worth $5 million. And she's like, I'm not worth $5 million. Like, I mean, you'd be surprised how little even like top level people make. Like the director of the first Wonder Woman made like $1 million, which don't get me wrong, that's a ton of money. But for being like the director of a major Marvel movie.
Was it Tim Miller who did the first Wolverine? I think he got paid $200,000.
See, there you go.
And he's like, I did it. He was making his money off his television. And so he's like, I just want to do the film. And don't get me wrong, that's a huge amount of money, but for Hollywood, it's not for being a director on Deadpool,
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, you got to realize these guys, they give, there's all these people with a finger in the pie on their front, like their agent takes a cut and so on and so on. So like what gets them, what was it? Who was it? A major Hollywood actor said in an interview, he was in a major movie and he got paid $200,000 for the movie. The end check he got was like $30,000, like when everybody else took their cut. So if you're working in a movie and you're getting paid and, and it's good, don't complain. But we all hope, I mean, nothing more than like independent filmmakers. I'm sure you'd love nothing more than any of the actors or the crew people you work with to get those massive Hollywood checks someday, right? Yeah. I mean, you just be ecstatic, like good for them. But when you're working with an independent person, realize they're not Hollywood and they can't do the same thing.
Just be realistic and, everybody needs to be fair on both sides, but be realistic about what the project is and what you're doing and be part of the team. Yeah. Conversely, and Brian is definitely not this person, there are people who do take advantage. Yeah.
And if you feel like you're in that situation, then you can exit. Yeah. But it's, So anyway, thanks for coming here, Brian. I really enjoyed it. And I think that was great.
Okay. Thank you.
Tune in next time.